Drinking this album, listen to the booze. I think it would pair well, if only for you, 'cause it's album reviews. It's album reviews.
Hello, darling friends, and welcome back to Album Reviews, the stickiest, youngest movie podcast. Movie podcast? Oh, that's interesting. Hey, welcome to our new show. No, ha ha ha. It's the stickiest music podcast, you silly goose. Pranked ya. I just looked outside my window, and this is a real fact. I see the sky not only about to rain, but it is actively raining. My name is Sarah.
Oh, so that's what I was going to use.
You said it wasn't album related.
It was outside related. Oh, I'm so mad. I'm going to start a revolution. That's blue. My name's Zach.
Stunning.
Hi, I'm Ryan, and today we will be talking about someone who has always been an old man. Take a look at his life. That's Neil Young, and again, I am Ryan, or Olive Avenue.
Yay.
A natural already. Thank you so much, Ryan, for coming onto our show and sitting on my couch with us and spending this evening together. We're very excited to have you.
I'm super excited to be here.
Yay. You make music under the name Olive Avenue. Is that an avenue named Olive or an avenue made out of olives?
Good question. It's just a street by my house that I saw once, and I was like, that has a ring to it.
It does.
And yeah, it was originally a song title for a previous project. And then when I did a rebrand, I was like, oh, okay. Yeah.
That's some good shit. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I pass it all the time and I'm always like, hey, girl. I see you looking cute over there.
I love it. It's just like the band Boston.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Except everywhere they look, they go, hey, girl.
Hey, hey.
Well, if you're at home and you have the internet, you should check out Olive Avenue on Instagram, Olive Avenue Music. Keep an ear and an eye out for a new song that is actually out already called Miami. I bet it rips. I haven't heard it because it's not out while we're recording it.
I'm simply titillated. I cannot wait for it to grace the airwaves. But lucky you, listener.
You can do it right now.
It's available for you right now.
Yeah, you're in the future. We're in the past.
What a gift every day is.
It's kind of a sexy song, so I hope you're ready to get sexy.
Oh my God.
Wow.
If you're listening
Damn.
to this on a Monday, you could have a sexy Monday evening.
Wow.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Speaking of sexy Monday evenings,
Here we are.
Talking about a great record. Ryan, would you let the folks at home know the record and why you picked it?
Yeah, so we're talking about On the Beach by Neil Young. I picked this album because it has lived with me throughout, I'd say, the last 8 years of my life. It came to me in a really pivotal time in my life. I was introduced to it by my friend Max while we were on a trip in Panama, and we were literally on the beach.
Oh my God.
And
Wow.
we had a little speaker, and he was like, I've been loving this record. I'm going to put it on. And from that moment, and we'll get into it, but the sounds, the vibes, the energy of the album just really impacted me. And I feel like it's only grown more profound as I've aged. So
Were you a Neil Young fan before this record? Or
this was my first
this
Neil
was your
Young
worst?
album.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is wild because probably most Neil Young fans would be like, bold record to start with. Like, it's definitely not like where all his music goes, because it's definitely a reaction to stuff that was more polished and more famous and stuff like that. But yeah, this was my first one, and you can't replace that feeling you get with the first one.
Absolutely.
It really stays with you.
That's so cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How about you, Sarah? What was your connection with Mr. Young?
So, I mean, a while ago, Ryan emailed us and said that we were going to talk about On the Beach by Neil Young. And that's how I was introduced to the record On the Beach by Neil Young.
Let's go.
I feel like I haven't listened to much Neil Young, at least like as like a conscious like choice. Like I'm sure I've heard it at like family parties and like on the radio and whatever.
Much to Neil Young's dismay.
Exactly.
I don't really know like I can like think of some of these bands from there and like I know what that fan looks like.
Right.
But I don't know what like an OG Neil Young fan looks like.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
I
picture
do.
like a dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I picture a dad. I feel like, and it's funny because I feel like, okay, so after I listened to this record, you know, on Spotify, how it like suggests music for you right afterwards, it immediately started playing Steely Dan.
Oh,
and I
sure.
love me some Steely
Uh-huh.
Dan. And so I feel like the Neil Young and Steely Dan like cinematic universes probably like kiss each other a bit
Yeah.
in passing.
Well, he did a lot with like Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
Yes, of
There's,
course.
so like that universe of dadness is
Mhm.
definitely there.
Totally. Yeah, I think the Steely Dan thing is interesting because I feel like there's some Neil Young music that has that same polish that
Mhm.
Steely Dan really carries. And then there's stuff like this album, which is like kind of on the other end of that coin, but it is dad music through and through.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What about you, Zach?
I know some Neil Young from the 70s cover band I used to play in high school.
Did I learn something new about you?
Oh, you didn't know
today?
this about me?
I don't think I did.
We did Heart of Gold, and I think we did Old Man Take a Look at My Life, but maybe we did like a weird cover of it.
Sure. Well,
Yeah.
if you were in high school,
Yeah,
I
like
think
Shine
most
Down or someone
covers
had
are-
like a butt rock version of it.
butt rock Neil Young,
Let's go.
love.
But I've never done a deep dive into them like I did for
Yeah.
this week, and I had a great time.
Me too. It's
Yeah.
a good vibe. Also, I know this is like an auditory medium, but like look at the like album cover for it. I think the album cover is so stunning.
I'm
like-
so glad you brought this up.
I love the color palette. This very like just so very nearly washed out, like very light blue and very like almost buttery yellow. And there's this like Cadillac fucking sticking out of the dirt.
Oh, didn't see
And
that.
like they're on a beach and there's the classic like beach umbrella. It's just an aesthetic I really get behind. So I saw it and I was like, ugh, slay. And I was reading a little bit about like
How they made it.
how they made
Yeah.
it and like going to a junkyard and having them like cut this car so they could like stick it in the beach.
Literally, I think it might be my favorite album cover of all time.
Hell yeah.
They couldn't just Photoshop that shit.
No,
They had
No,
to
it was
go
the
cut a car in
70s.
half and bury it.
No, it was
Yeah.
fucking 1974. Like they did not Photoshop
Yeah.
that. They recreated that whole thing. And I've seen people in the YouTube comments be like, my grandma had that same like porch set basically of like the chairs and the umbrella, but it
From a Sears catalog or something, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But it is such a vibe and
Mhm.
there's so much artistry in it. And even the newspaper that's under the table, I
Mhm.
think has a mention of Nixon,
Yeah.
which is like gets
Wow.
mentioned a little on this album. So there's like Easter eggs going on there. There's like a little hanger, like a coat hanger that's coming from the umbrella. The inside of the umbrella is so cool. The like frills that are on the outside of the
Mhm.
umbrella. And then you just have him in the yellow jacket staring out.
Just right at the ocean.
I'm like, that's what it feels like
Yeah.
to listen
Are
to
those
this
his
album.
boots to the left of him?
Yeah.
He's got his toes in the
Yep,
sand.
yep. He
Wow.
took those boots
Love.
off. Yeah.
Got those little piggies out.
Yeah, so I do love I did read about that a little and I was like just picturing them putting this album together,
Yeah.
album cover together, and I was like, wow, so much thought went into this, and it's just a fucking vibe, really.
It is. It's just a really beautiful image.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
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 Thing.
Love.
Well, we've also got it paired with this beautiful looking Gold Rush.
So excited.
It's honey and lemon juice and bourbon.
Yes, it's a honey syrup, which is so easy to make if you're ever intimidated by making syrup. It's literally equal parts honey and hot water.
Mm.
Easy breezy. Stir it up, and you've got yourself a honey syrup. You can put it in your coffee and whatever. Yeah, and lemon and bourbon.
Let's try it. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh, it's good.
Yum.
Yeah.
Yum.
That's
yum.
so summery.
Yeah.
It's exactly what I wanted.
Yeah, that's
It's kind of like a sweeter lemon sour.
Yeah, like I don't know about y'all. I'm a big whiskey sour girl.
Mhm.
And I said this off air that I've also been on a bee's knees kick, which is basically this but with gin instead of whiskey.
Mhm.
I just love a sweet lemon drink.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like drinks that don't have too many ingredients in them.
Because
Because then you get kind of the fullness of each ingredient
Totally.
doing its thing, and it comes
Mhm.
together in this nice way.
Yeah,
So yeah, I'm a fan of the simple drink that just was easy.
absolutely.
Totally. And the reason for the pairing is from another record? Kind
Yeah.
of, sort of?
Yeah, it's kind of multi-layered. But
Galore.
yeah, so my initial idea was I wanted a drink that incorporated honey because during the making of this album, their debaucherous substance of choice was this thing that they dubbed as honey slides, and they're kind of infamous now, but they are edibles that were made just like they said you needed like shit weed. But I was like, it's the 70s, it was shit weed.
Right.
Like, let's be honest. Like, and they would just mix it together in a pan with some honey until it got really like caramelized. And they said that it was, quote, heavier than heroin, which I'm sure it was not.
Right.
But I think it made them catatonic.
Yeah.
And I think that comes through in the album.
Yeah.
But it's like one of those like, you know, like old rock and roll lore kind of facts about the album. And then also After the Gold Rush is one of his best and most famous records and also best and most famous songs. So I thought it was appropriate on on a couple levels. Yeah.
I didn't even think about the honey slides tie-in. Yeah.
Love.
We should have just put weed in this whiskey sour.
I would have drifted away.
Well, that leads us actually really beautifully into the game that I've prepared
Tell me more.
for this evening. It has a really simple title, and I've kind of done something similar on the show before. This game is called Neil Young Album or Weed Strain.
He's got so many records.
Yes.
He does, yeah, and I don't know them all.
I couldn't find a straight answer either on like what exactly the number of records he has released is. It's like somewhere in the late 40s to early 50s.
Because they're not all on Spotify.
They're not all on Spotify, and also like all the lists are like a little bit different because it's like, well, do we count these collab records? Do we da-da-da-da-da?
Yeah. Do you count the Pearl Jam record?
Exactly,
I do.
exactly.
It's kind of like he's in that Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, Prince kind of territory where it's just like, oh my God, there's so many records.
So many.
Yeah.
Like either close to or over 50.
Yeah.
And as we mentioned with the honey sticks, Neil Young is a certified cannabis enjoyer. In fact, so Neil Young's originally Canadian, and when he was trying to get his American citizenship, this was back in like I think 2019 or 2020, it ended up getting delayed because of his cannabis use. Ha 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 ha. He ended up getting it. We're all good. But a lot of his albums sound like weed strain names, and a lot of weed strain names sound like they could be Neil Young albums. So
real chicken and egg situation.
Exactly.
Which came first, Neil Young or weed?
Yeah, and they've both been chilling out dads for a long time.
Yup.
Yeah,
I think they pair well together.
Stunning. I think I'll have you work together for this.
Sure,
Two
okay.
brains are better than one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna name the name of something, and you're gonna tell me if it's a weed strain or a Neil Young album.
All right.
Pretty straightforward.
Pretty straightforward.
All right.
But more tricky than you might think, probably.
You might. Number one, the name of this is Northern Lights.
I think this is a Neil Young record, but it's not one that I've listened to, so I'm not... Like, there will be other ones I will probably be like, this is a Neil Young album. This is not one of them. But I think it is. Well, how do you feel?
I think
Northern Lights is definitely weed strain too, though.
Like, giving me such a look.
Sarah's really good at brain games. I think she's thrown us a curveball, and this one is both for the first one.
Wow.
Just to really mess with us.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna trust you on this.
Whoa. You're like 5 steps ahead of me. Okay, you're locking in both as your answer?
Let's go.
It's only a weed strain.
Okay.
An indica to be specific.
Yeah. I knew for sure it was a weed strain.
Oh, you did?
No, I mean, it just got.
I mean, it just kind of had to be, yeah.
Smoking on that Northern Lights. Okay.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Number 2. The second name on this list is Ragged Glory.
That's a Neil Young album.
That's a Neil Young album.
Yeah.
You are correct.
Yeah.
This is his 20th studio album, released in 1990.
Oh,
collaboration.
Have
with
we
band
listened to
Crazy
Ragged
Horse.
Glory?
I don't think I have.
I have not either.
I don't know.
Not consciously.
No.
20th record. in
Catatonically, though.
1990.
Yes, perhaps in another life.
Yeah.
Okay, good job. That's 1 point. Number 3 is Chrome Dreams.
It's giving weed, but
That's giving weed to me, unless it's like a later Neil Young record, like, because it doesn't sound at all to me like the 60s, 70s, and I'm pretty familiar with his stuff through the 60s and 70s. So I think I'm gonna go Weed Strain.
yeah, weed.
This is a Neil Young album.
Dang it. What year?
So it's not a trick question, but it's a tricky album. This is technically his 46th album.
Wow.
Yep,
It was
there
released in August of 2023. However, it was actually written and recorded in the late 70s.
Oh,
And it was just like shelved forever and ever
wow.
until it was like just released last year.
Does it have good reviews?
Yeah, I think most Neil Young albums do now.
Yeah.
I feel like every one I clicked on, it was like critical acclaim.
Yeah, no one's shitting on Neil Young
Yeah,
these days.
yeah. Okay. Next is Waiting Game.
That feels like record.
It does, but the last one felt like
Oh, yeah. See, this is where we have to play.
I
mind
know
games
the mind
Yeah.
games are tough.
Yeah.
Also, none of the I'd say I've probably listened to 8 Neil Young albums,
Okay.
but they're all in a cluster, kind of in like his like golden period of his early career.
Mhm.
So I don't this later stuff. I mean, shit, that could be an album. I don't know.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like a Weed Strain to me.
Mm-mm.
Like I don't know if I would buy one that's
Mhm.
called Waiting Game because it's like what do you just
It's
wait
gonna give
for
me
it?
anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
they all do, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna go album, but
Yeah, me too.
I'm not confident on any of these right now.
I'm so sorry. It's a weed strain.
Ah,
A sativa, in fact.
Dang.
Is it like a slow release sativa?
Maybe if you just take a gummy. But I guess all gummies are waiting games.
Good.
That's true.
You can find out more on leafly.com, which is where I dead ass, just to peek behind the curtain real quick, went on leafly.com, clicked all strains, and just scrolled through
for Neil Young
like
looking at
so
names.
many pages.
This is such a good idea for a game, honestly. Like,
Thank you.
it's pretty difficult, and with the amount of records he has,
Yeah.
this is not easy.
We couldn't do this with like, I don't know, Harry Styles. He has like 3.
Yeah, we'd
Great.
run out quickly.
We'd run
yeah.
out quickly. Yeah, anyway. Okay. So you have 1 correct out of 4 so far.
That's 25%.
There are 3 left. So if you get all 3 right, you've still gotten the majority of them right, which I'll
Okay.
count as a win.
Okay, we
Yeah.
can do this.
So we're just
we
gonna
can do
just gotta
this.
home
Yeah.
run real fast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Okay, great. Number 5 is Lay, L-E, Noise. Les Noise.
This game's so hard, Sarah.
This is really hard. I'm gonna go Weed Strain. Also, Sarah did say 5 steps ahead when you initially said it's both. So I think maybe later we will have. one
Oh,
that's
we might
both.
have a both.
But I don't know. That's just
Sometimes there's both. I don't
sometimes it's
know.
both.
That would be hilarious.
That would be hilarious.
Le Noise. Do you
Le
want to say
Noise.
record?
No, let's go Weed Strain.
Okay, let's go Weed Strain.
Are you sure?
Dang it.
Let's go record.
Good job, you're correct. This is Neil's 32nd album, released on September 28th, 2010.
Wow.
And the title of this one is a pun because the engineer on it was named like Matt or something. Leinoise. His last name was Lenoise, but then it's like called it Lenoise.
It's fun.
I need to get into these late era Neil Young records.
There's
Yeah.
so much Neil Young. It's such a deep well. Okay. Number 6 is Psychedelic Pill.
Sounds like a Dr. Dog record.
It does sound like a Dr. Dog record. And there are no trick Dr. Dog questions. I promise.
What was last one? Last one was a record.
Last one was a record. Do you want the full breakdown so far?
No, that's good.
No, we know it's
If
bad.
I think about it too much, it's gonna throw me
Okay,
off.
okay.
Psychedelic Pill. I'm just gonna go Weed Strain.
Sure.
I'm so
Man.
Psychedelic Pill is Neil Young's 34th album. It was a collaboration with the band Crazy Horse. Released on October 30th, 2012. Spooky record. Ooh.
Wow.
Last one. This one's worth 50 million points.
Okay,
So we
you're
can
saying there's a
still
chance.
win.
You can
So you're
still
saying there's a
win.
chance.
Okay, lucky number 7 is Devil Driver.
Well, I don't know that record either. Ooh, that was a rhyme.
Oh. It doesn't feel very Neil Young.
But neither did a few of these because I feel like he's just a different vibe now than he was back in
yeah.
in the
Mhm.
70s. So I don't have a pulse on this. I feel like anything could be a weed strain, and that's why I'm struggling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, if Waiting Game was a weed strain,
Mm.
What else?
what
is a
else
weed
could be?
strain?
Like Left Foot? Like
Yeah.
yeah, probably.
Maybe. That was actually number 8. No, I'm kidding.
I'm gonna take your lead on this one. I'm gonna put my faith in you for the
Mhm.
50 million burger.
I
Mhm.
think I want to lean record because, like you were saying, he was just naming shit. And 50 records is probably about how many weed strains there are.
Yeah.
There are a lot of weed strains.
Oh, so statistically we should say weed strain.
Well, statistically, yeah, there's probably 50 million of those things.
I think when I was on Leafly, it was like either 800 or 8,000. Like it was so many.
But not in the 70s.
No.
These aren't strains from the 70s.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was just a callback to shit weed.
Yeah.
Just saying Neil Young had one type of weed.
Right. It was just Kush.
Yeah. Do you want to just? I'm gonna go weed strain. I think.
Yeah, let's do weed strain.
Congratulations!
50 million.
It actually is Devil Driver, a hybrid weed strain. That was good. Thank you so much for playing Neil Young album or weed strain.
We played it well. We played it honestly.
Yeah.
Yes. You played a great game.
Yeah.
We did.
We tried.
Now we're in the
We failed.
post-game breakdown.
Yeah. Here we go. Well,
You know, I came out a little too confident. I
Right.
think.
I did too because I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I've listened to a
Yeah.
chunk of his records, but in the grand scheme of things, I have only listened to maybe less, like a fifth.
Yeah.
If he's got 40 something and I've listened to like 8,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
still there's so many that I
All
I
I
had
can,
no clue
All
about.
I can do is listen to more Neil Young and smoke different types of weed. That's the
Yeah.
only thing I can do to prepare for next time.
I gotta study up. That's what you'll do in the off season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a good game.
Amazing. Well, cool. Do we need to take a break or anything before we go track by track?
I'm feeling good.
I'm good.
I'm ready to
I'm
walk
ready to
on.
roll.
You ready to walk on?
Yeah. Walk onto the field.
Walk on.
That's what the song's about.
I just
Sarah
made
just
a
did
rock and
the-
roll hand and said, walk on. It's like if you're
Walk
doing
and
rock and
roll.
roll, but you have like a speech impediment
Or you're
or a baby.
Or a baby. Baby.
Walk on.
who's the guy from the movie Walk the Line?
Oh, Joaquin Phoenix?
Yeah, or if you're I was trying to think of the musician.
Oh, Johnny Cash.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello, I'm
Yeah.
Johnny Cash. Joaquin the Phoenix Lion.
Walking on the Phoenix.
Oh, I want to say real quickly that I watched Walk the Line when I was younger, and I was actually far too young to watch that movie. It's
Yeah.
really intense. I don't know if either of you have watched it, but then I watched it as an adult, and Joaquin Phoenix and Reese Witherspoon are in it.
Mhm.
Just both looking so hot,
So
and I was
choice.
like, oh dear,
Oh dear.
am I bisexual?
Classic.
And I
So
mean,
classic.
am I as in I am? Like,
Right.
like,
Well, that's the thing is the question becomes a declaration.
right. It wasn't my awakening, but it definitely was a reinforcement. I was
Yes.
like, oh dear.
Yeah, a critical moment in the
Yeah.
timeline.
Absolutely.
Was it like the country ruggedness of both of them, or
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
It was everything. I mean, just like watch that movie again if you haven't in a while,
Stunning.
and tell me that you aren't bisexual.
Yes.
I dare you.
That's the bi agendas to make everyone bisexual. I like to ask this question. How do you feel about this first song, Walk On, just like as an opener?
I think it is such a cool and intriguing and interesting opener because I don't think it really sounds like the rest of the album.
Yeah.
It's kind of breezy. It's kind of lighter, I'd say, than the rest of the record. And it's one of two songs that was recorded a little earlier. It was this and For the Turnstiles were both recorded a little earlier, and then I think the rest of the tracks were recorded kind of all together. But yeah, it kind of, you hear it and you go, yeah, this fits a record called On the Beach.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah,
And then the rest of the
And then there's
record
like
goes...
Vampire Blues.
Yeah, right. And you go in a different direction. But I love this song. And one thing I did is I wrote down little lyric segments for each song, just like little moments that really stuck out to me.
Yes,
Because I think,
please.
so for this one, it's just basically the chorus, but I think it really sets things off well. He says, "Ooh, baby, that's hard to change. I can't tell them how to feel. Some get stoned, some get strange. Sooner or later, it all gets real. Walk on." And I feel like that is, I mean, those are killer lyrics for an opener.
Yeah.
And it's very much like it's a little bit of like a casual FU to his detractors at the time. And I think important context for this record is that this is a real reaction to him getting famous and not really knowing what to do with that. And so I think that will be a theme throughout so many of these songs. But I think this song is kind of him saying, you know, he's kind of being sarcastic and a little snotty and a little FU to the people who are just kind of like coming into his life because of the fame and like maybe using his money. It's probably hard when you get famous to know what people's intentions are.
Totally.
And I think that is a struggle for him during this period. So
Yeah.
this song is a little bit, it's a little surface level. It's a little breezy, like I mentioned, but it kind of sets us on this path where he's going to be addressing fame and all of the complexities.
Yeah, because this is album number 5. And the one right before it, because there's kind of 3 in a row that are considered really great, right?
Yeah, let me just go back to the link I had open that had them all listed. I think what's interesting about this one is that he recorded a different album called Tonight's the Night before On the Beach. And what's, you know, really interesting is he had After the Gold Rush, which, like I mentioned earlier, one of his like fan favorites, and just song by song, it's really a song album. And then he has Harvest, which is, I think, his most famous, probably.
Yeah, I thought this was like a follow-up to the big one. Yeah, Harvest, yeah.
And then he heads for the ditch, basically, is how it's there's a trilogy of Tonight's the Night, On the Beach, and I think it's Time Fades Away. Which are known as the Ditch Trilogy in the Neil Young verse. And he has this quote where he says, so he's talking about Heart of Gold, which is on Harvest. He says, "This song put me in the middle of the road. Traveling there soon became a bore, so I headed for the ditch. A rougher ride, but I saw more interesting people there." And so he has some real significant loss in between Harvest and Tonight's the Night and On the Beach. He loses 2 very good friends, a bandmate and like a road member, crew member, to drug overdoses. Oh man! And then he makes this album Tonight's the Night, which most people say is his most like dark and depressing album. And he turns it into the label, and they go, "What the fuck is this? Like you literally just put out Harvest, and like you are, you know, people want to hear these songs. They want to hear this version of you." And he was like,
"That ain't me."
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
That's not me right now.
Yeah, and I think Time Fades Away is a live album that actually, that might be in between, now that I'm looking at it, I think that's in between Harvest and On the Beach, Tonight's the Night. And I think that was the tour where he was supposed to play the Harvest music, and instead he just plays all new music, and all the fans that come to see him for Harvest are like, "Where are these songs? Like, where's Heart of Gold?" And he's like, "I'm just going to play all new music, and I'm going to put it out as a live record." So that's Time Fades Away. And then Tonight's the Night is the one that he like gives to his label, and they go, "Absolutely not." And he goes, "Okay, whatever." And then does On the Beach. That comes out. I'm sure the label was like, "Oh God, like whatever, like we have to put out something at this point."
Yeah.
And then Tonight's the Night comes out the year after. So recorded in like different order than they came out, but they're all kind of this cluster of him in this really tough part of his life where he's reacting to fame. He's losing a few of his best friends, and he is trying to make intentionally rougher music that is not appealing to the middle of the road.
Yeah.
Yeah. because there's like kind of like this like hyper not hyper blues, but kind of like this Eric Clapton blues that's popular at the time, which is this like really commercial blues music, kind of for like this Caucasian audience, right? You know? And so we'll see that come up later with like some of the
song titles and stuff. Yeah, the way that he takes the blues on this album and says "fuck all of you" is like pretty wild. But yeah, that was a lot of context that wasn't necessarily Walk On related, but I think that
super
is
important.
super
Sets the
important.
stage.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
like this is such a big career moment for him, and I think it's one of those things that makes me so interested in him, because I love artists that completely veer course for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But usually with big artists who are really true to their craft and they get really famous, usually they have this reaction where they go, nope, like I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And at the time, I can only imagine how it was received, but over time, those are usually the records that the fans end up saying like, whoa, this was, not only was this special music, but this was badass to do it at all. You know?
Yeah, I thought I read somewhere that like this one wasn't like crazy received at the start.
No.
Right.
Yeah, and
No.
then only later kind of became like a beloved record
It's
in
his
catalog.
fully adieu. Sorry. So sorry. I'm a fully
That was a
adieu
great one.
truther.
Yeah. No, that's great. I grew up on that record.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he, you know, like for this album, basically instead of like wanting the songs to sound good with a polished mix and everything, he literally just wanted to take the like rough mixes from the studio and say like, that's it. Send that to the mastering engineer. Like, and his engineers were like, bro, what the fuck? Like, you're not gonna mix these songs. Are you
Yeah.
kidding? And what's wild is like, I just think that, I mean, if it was my own music and I hadn't mixed it, I would probably be like, this sounds like shit. But when I'm listening to someone else's music, it's like, I don't even register that because the vision and the vibe is so strong.
Yeah.
You know what I
totally,
mean?
Totally.
But it's like, yeah, I can imagine you would ostracize yourself from your engineers if you go, don't want to mix it. They're
Yeah.
like, what? Like, that's like saying I don't want to use my left hand anymore. Like, it's just like,
yeah.
you should use that one if you're going to use your right one too. Like, I don't know. So just so much interesting stuff going on at this time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's so funny because there's a couple times this record where I'm like, oh, that's a bass tone. Like, that's a choice. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
sounds like shit.
But like vibey shit.
Yeah.
You know, like
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
so funny.
Yeah, I've seen this album called but this guy, I think Stephen Hayden is his name. He's like he's like the like dad rock writer, and he's been doing it for a long time. I think he wrote for like The Ringer. He writes for Up Rocks, or not The Ringer, Grantland, back when it was Grantland. Ringer is what it like where people went after, but anyway, Grantland and then Up Rocks, and he recently did a like ranking of the Neil Young songs. His like top, I don't know, 100, 150, I can't remember. And he called this album a vibes album. He was like,
Yeah.
On the Beach is a vibes album, so it might have less songs on my top 100 than After the Gold Rush, which I would call a songs album. And I think that there are great songs on this album, but I totally agree that it's like, it is a vibe from start to finish. And the atmosphere is just as important as the songs themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great way to put it. That guy was
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I think he is. Yeah, totally. So anyway, I don't have a ton to say about Walk On, but it introduces some like weird vocal harmonies, which I love about this album. I love just like the vibe of it. I guess, was there anything that you guys felt about it listening? Did you expect what came after when you first listened to it, or how did it feel?
It made me feel so chill.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
blissed.
Yeah.
Just blissed. Like my first listen I did of this record was a dishes listen, of course, where I like put it in my AirPods and I do my dishes. And I love when I get a vibes album like this, capital V vibes album, for like doing my dishes or like getting some stuff done at work, because you really get to just kind of like drift in and out of this like energy.
And it makes
really...
that kind of mundane thing you're doing, a lot more kind of like romantic and
Absolutely.
vibey and cool and
soundtracky.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like lighting incense or something. Like it just sort of introduces
I love
a
that.
really delicious energy.
Sometimes people call music like an auditory wallpaper.
Yeah.
I love the idea of an auditory incense. That's
Yeah.
that is a fucking band name.
Write that down. Write that
Auditory
down.
incense. Neil Young
TM.
record or Weed
No.
Strain.
And it could be either.
Probably was both.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's kind of how I felt like getting into this. I was like, oh, I'm gonna vibe with this one for
There you
sure.
go.
Especially
Cool.
like not knowing Neil Young's work super well.
Yeah, totally. I did have that feeling where I was like, maybe I'm introducing these two to like a downer of a record. But I think what I'll get into later is that I think on its surface, while it might be kind of a downer, I think there are so many emotions explored in this album
Totally.
that are
Yeah.
not just like, it's sad. It's like, it's very surface level examination of it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I liked it a lot as an opener. I instantly like felt like it sounded kind of modern. I was like, wow, 72? Like
Totally.
Yeah.
it feels like this could have been released recently.
It has that
Mhm.
kind of like slacker rock vibe.
Yeah.
It has an
Mhm.
indie rock vibe. Something I've learned about Neil Young just listening to his music is how influential and ahead of his time he was. And yeah, I'll get into that later with a couple of the songs, how just like modern I think the lyrics are and like how much they relate to
Sure.
what we're going through right now. But
Mhm.
yeah, I totally agree that it sounds like I could hear a Chicago band
Easily.
at like Cole's on a fucking Tuesday night, like just
That
ripping
kinda sounds like-
some
yeah.
walk on. Yeah, you know.
Precisely.
Well, let's hear a little bit before I move on from it.
Yeah.
You want to just go from the gump or go from the jump?
Let's gump
Let's gump it.
Or there's a guitar solo at 1:08 that I like.
it.
Yeah, we can do
Ooh.
that. I don't have a timestamp for this one, so
Here, I'll play a little bit of the beginning just so you can like light your incense,
Walk on with
spark
us.
up,
yeah, walk on with us.
walk on with us, and then maybe we'll do a little of that guitar solo as well.
Sure.
I hear some people been talking me down. Bring up my name, pass it round. They don't mention the happy times. They do their thing, I do mine.
It's so like accessible,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
It totally is. And I noticed this time listening to it that he sings, I hear some people been talking me down. The here and the P in the people are so like the pop filter
got
was not
explosives.
there. It's like it's just like, and I'm like, oh, okay, like we are setting the tone.
Yeah.
It sounds like shit. Like, let's go. Like, and
Neil Young ASMR?
yeah.
Question mark?
Is
Yeah.
this like, do you know the record that Prince did that he did intentionally bad to be mad to like get back at his record label? Is that what Neil Young's doing right now?
Yeah, kind of.
He's trying to get back at the haters.
He literally starts the album by saying, I hear some people been talking me down.
Yes.
Bring up my name, pass it around. Like
Yes.
he's like, people are gossiping on my name. Like
I was watching like I promise this will relate the Cardi B episode of Hot Ones.
Uh-huh.
And Sean Evans, who I admire and will be someday, was talking to Cardi B and asking about like the diss track and like the placement of sort of a diss track on an album. Because I think her most recent album, the first track, is like, so you said shit and we have beef and fuck you and I work hard and da 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 da. And she was just kind of saying like, I want to get all my beef out and then have fun.
Yeah. I'm getting my beef out and then I'm getting into what I came here to do.
Exactly.
Wow, yeah.
Exactly.
The
And
Cardi-
this made me think of
The
that.
Neil Young to Cardi B pipeline. More likely
Yeah.
than you think.
More likely than you think.
Okay, I want to play a little bit of this guitar solo and then we'll move on to See the Sky About to Rain.
ASMR.
I remember
It's so chill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got that bad bass tone going.
The
like
bad bass.
the bad bass tone that's just like fat and just, there. But it's cool because you have, I feel like this sets the tone a little bit. Tone, pun intended, is that Neil Young's like known for his guitar tones and just like his guitar tone's really recognizable, and his solos are very, they're not very virtuosic, but they're usually very melodic and very based on feel and emotion. And I think this one does not give away some of the other like solos that are to come in other songs, but it sets a vibe.
Absolutely.
This is a great opening track. I think,
And
honestly.
a moose boosh.
And a moose
Can you hear that ice clink at all? That's our fresh gold rush. We're rejuvenated and ready for more.
There's more honey in this one, and it's really good.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, it's like I'm like drinking Honey Nut Cheerios.
That's so funny because I used the exact same amount both times.
Nope, this one's got more.
Oh, wow. I love that.
Or the ice is just less melted.
We're on drink number 2, and this is track number 2. See the sky about to rain.
We're
One-
gonna be
one per track.
Yeah, we're gonna be struggling by track 5.
Have you heard of that baseball thing where it was? I learned about this from our dear friend Chris Skinner, who go listen to his episode. You go to a baseball game and it's 9 innings, 9 hot dogs, 9 beers.
Wow, I haven't, but I mean, I think plenty of people do that at Wrigley Field.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the most
yeah.
American way to experience the most American sport.
And then you go home and you puke everywhere.
Yeah.
9 pukes.
This second track is also such a freaking vibe.
Oh, it's
like a little
such a vibe.
sleepier. It's just like very mellow, very like pared back. I noticed that with a lot of songs on this album. It's like very pared back.
Yeah.
Like just very simple.
And the organ sound is so good.
So
Like this
good.
is a nice organ. Probably recorded the tape, most definitely 1972.
Yeah.
I think
It's
it's
nice.
the Wurlitzer.
Classic organ.
Classic organ
Yeah.
name if I knew what a
The
Wurlitzer
Wurl-
was.
It's an electric keyboard. It's similar to the Rhodes, which was another popular electric keyboard from that era. But yeah, it's got like little knobs that you can turn to affect the vibrato, so you can make it like wavier.
Yeah.
And it's got kind of this just wobbly psychedelic thing going on, and then also Neil Young kind of plays it like shit on this song, so it it adds to the very wobbly nature. But I think the instruments on this song are like the Wurlitzer, the bass, the drums, and then a pedal steel guitar. I think it's a pedal steel or a slide, but I'm pretty sure it's a pedal steel.
Yeah.
And then there's a little harmonica at the end. So it's like those are all vibey, and it's like the whirly and the pedal steel and harmonica are all these
Kinda
like
beachy.
vibey, kind of beachy.
Yeah.
If I had to describe this song in one word, it would be melancholy. Like I feel like this song
Yeah.
is melancholy, and it
Yeah.
really struck me listening to this album because melancholy is kind of my whole thing, and it just kind of like seeps into your bones, you know. Gorgeous song. I love the way that it's got like a really simple chord progression, but it subtly changes towards the middle, and then the end of the song it uses like the same melody, but it changes the chords underneath a little. And the lyrics that I wrote down from this song were, I was down in Dixieland, played a silver fiddle, played it loud, and then the man broke it down the middle. Which, you know, just like another really like appropriate sentiment that is spreading across this album about Neil Young is trying to show, I think, who he is, and he's feeling the pressure from the top coming down on him. And you know, the man, stick it to the maniosis or whatever they say in School of Rock. For this one, I have this is so appropriate for the Honey Slides and for the game that we played, but I have a timestamp at 4:20 on this one.
Nice.
Yes! Oh my God, we did it!
He knew. He knew.
Sorry, that was so loud. Okay, our air horn buttons broke it.
Oh,
I'm gonna
One
try
more
it
time?
one more time.
it's too loud.
Don't worry,
Let's not do that
Captain.
anymore.
We'll buff out those scratches in post.
Our air horn's broken. Did we use it too much?
Used it too much.
No!
Used and abused.
Oh, it's tragic. Okay, let's go to 420.
yeah.
Yeah, now we need the manual air horn going
Yeah.
forward, which I think you've got down.
Okay, I'll clock in. Oh my god. Let's freaking vibe.
420.
See the sky.
Like, come on. Come on. And something that I really love about this record and also Neil Young's playing is that I'm also a big Bob Dylan fan.
Mhm.
But man, does that fucker play the harmonica in a really abrasive way. Like, he just screams
breath.
into it. Like, Neil Young plays it delicately. Like,
Yeah.
and he kind of just glides and floats over a couple of these outros with the
Effortless.
harmonica. And it's really, like, I remember when my friend Max showed me this song. It might have been Motion Pictures, but that's a similar harmonica vibe. And I remember him just sitting there, we're on the beach, and he goes, "That harmonica is so pretty." And I was like, "You're right."
Yeah.
Like, wow. It really is. And so I love that. And I think it only shows up at the very end of this tune. And it always just kind of like, that outro just really kind of takes me away. And I love where his voice comes back in and he's just doing like those ahs. And it's melancholy. Like, it really is.
Yeah. I don't think I really like appreciated either like how kind of up there his like vocal register is.
He's got a high voice.
It's up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a
Yeah.
high voice. He's got a
Better.
weird voice.
Yeah.
And
he
he-
kind of always sounds like a grandpa.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, like I said, he's been an old man. I think so. I'm 29 and I think he was about that age when he made this
Mhm.
record, but he sounds 74.
Absolutely.
Old soul, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, which I love because I really resonate with that. But
Mhm.
yeah, his voice does some interesting things and it's very pretty in a non-traditional way.
Yeah.
Like, I know that if you're a fan of like really, really traditional pretty vocalists, you probably hear Neil Young and you go, I don't know.
Yeah.
But if you like weird voices that are kind of alien and a little strange, his kind of just scratches that itch for me.
Absolutely. Like breezy alien.
Yeah, absolutely.
Breezy alien grandpa.
Breezy, beachy alien grandpa.
Clocking in.
Band name.
Write that down.
Yeah.
I love the rhyme pattern on this chorus, and I would like to just read the last word of each chorus.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Or of each phrase in this chorus, just so you guys will pick up on the rhyme pattern or lack thereof.
Yeah.
Rain, rain, train, brain, plane, again. Not the word again, mind you.
Yeah.
Rain.
On again, he wanted you to fill in the blanks. Like,
Yeah.
he's like, do a little work. Why don't you? Like,
Yeah.
I don't need to rhyme everything.
He could be pretentious and said the word again.
He's like, if you want to put the accent on, that's on you.
He's very clear.
Yeah.
Let your
says,
brain fill it in again.
He's like, I have rhymed enough in this chorus.
He goes, I have nothing to gain from doing that.
But also, like, just a testament to his songwriting. Like, none of those rhymes feel cheesy.
No.
The whole chorus.
No, it really flows.
Yeah.
No, and something that I was talking about, the Stephen Hayden, who is the Neil Young super fan, dad rock extraordinaire. Like, something he pointed out is he's like, Neil Young kind of has this, he kind of exists in this place where people think of him kind of like a Bob Dylan as a wordsmith, but he's actually a little bit more of like a tunesmith, where he is a little bit melody first, lyrics second. And I think the lyrics on this album, for the most part, are just economic in the sense where it's like they just do the thing. They make me think. They make me feel things. There's so many lines. I mean, I wrote down lines from every song that hit me, but it's not really until the final song where you get the full lyrical blooming, you know?
Totally.
Kind of lets
And
him.
where he that to me is like, oh, that's kind of Bob Dylan-esque. But like, he is a little bit more like, you know, like maybe like a Paul McCartney or a Brian Wilson, just someone who's a little bit more like melancholy tune, melody first, lyrics second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see that. I see that.
But still great lyrics.
Absolutely.
Just they're not like
it's
the
not a
thing.
throwaway
No.
at all.
No.
Yeah.
They really like serve each other.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I love that song. Every time I get to the end of it, I go, Neil, you're 2 for 2 on this album.
Yeah.
So how does 3 get you about being about Charles Manson all of a sudden?
Holy fuck.
Holy fuck.
This one was kind of a curveball for me.
This was a curveball. I said, on the beach?
On the beach?
I mean, I know the Charles Manson stuff happened in California, but like, on the beach?
This
This is a different vibe.
This song starts to really show the decay of the 1960s
Yeah.
into like the early rot of the 1970s and that whole dissolution of the Laurel Canyon thing. What's just crazy about it is that instead of just kind of standing on a podium and being a preacher, which I think would be a little more boring, and just kind of like, you know, saying like this was bad, he's
Right.
like, let me inhabit this character
Yeah.
and let me be, you know, this, like, let me just vibe in this world of the Charles Manson stuff. And this song is dark as fuck.
Yeah, he goes kind of method with it.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
like this song is dark.
Little Heath
Yeah.
Ledger, yeah.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
and I think it was I think David Crosby.
Yeah, on rhythm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he was like, Neil, this song, I don't like playing it. And Neil was like, get over it. Like, and he didn't want to play it live. It was just one of those things where he's like, I don't like the vibrations we're like putting out in the air. And I think Neil was like, well, it's happening, man. And like, we're doing it. Like, you know,
Yeah.
I think, and that to me is just such a like holding on to this like flower thing from the
Yeah.
1960s into like whatever, you know, the 1970s kind of became, which was this reckoning of all of the promise of the 1960s. And this, I mean, I have a couple lyrics here. I'm not even going to say some of the darkest ones. I think you should just listen to it.
Yeah.
But what I really like, I wrote down these 2 different lines, and they, to me, just like give the uneasy feeling that the whole song has, which is I won't attack you, but I won't back you. And then I won't deceive you. I just don't believe you. And it's this whole feeling of like, what's going to happen? Like,
Yeah.
do you like you don't, we don't trust each other. And
Right.
it's like, it's just kind of like, is he the killer? Is he a crony of the killer? Is he working with the killers? Is he again, like, you don't really know, but you just are like thinking of these images in your, like, or the line where he's like, remember your guard dog?
Yeah.
Well, I'm afraid that he's gone. It was such a drag to hear him whining all night long. And then he goes, ooh, like he's like howling. And I'm like, did you shoot the guard dog?
Yeah.
Psychopathy.
what did you
like,
do, Neil?
Yeah.
like, oh my God. And is it a dog or is it a human? Like, I don't, like,
Right.
what? Like,
Right.
you know? And it's like, it's just littered with these, I don't know, these lyrics. And then by the time, I'm not going to read the last stanza, but when you get to it, you're like, oh dear Christ.
Really
like,
picks up,
Mhm.
like lyrically and musically there, and you're just kind of like,
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and it just kind of takes this idea of like this bohemian lifestyle of the Laurel Canyon, like all of the artists that were living there, and it just shows like this rotten underbelly of it. And I'm just, and that's the lyrics, but the sound of this song is so sinister and so spooky, and so the guitar solo's ripping. It's just like, there's a vibe.
There's like this is like what the first time we get like a shuffle on the drums where we get like
Yeah.
some stuff going on. There's like,
yeah,
we can listen to the guitar solo at a minute 50 if you want.
Ooh.
hell yeah.
This is where you smoke weed and get scared.
Yeah, this is the bad part.
Yeah, what was the scary weed strain earlier?
Devil.
Devil.
The devil's droppings or something like that.
Devil Driver.
Yeah.
A weed strain called Manson Family.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
The devil driver is driving the dune buggy down the mountain.
Yeah.
Say that 5 times fast. Zach, I'm so sorry. A minute 50?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Recall alert.
spooky.
Yeah,
a
that's
spooky
kind of
vibrato.
villainous.
And that bass tone is all mids.
All mids. Yeah. We've got Levon Helm from the band is on drums. We've also got, who else is on this song? I think we said David Crosby's on this one. And then Rick Danko's on bass. Yeah. No, this one, it's a vibe. And I love, that guitar solo is one of my favorite examples of Neil Young just being like, he captures mood so well in his guitar solos and emotion. And it's like he's able to say the things that maybe he can't say with his voice through his guitar. The tone is killer. It rips through. It's just like, it's really, he knows how to capture the vibe of the song in his guitar playing. And it's like, it's not showy. But it serves the song so well. And yeah, this song fucking rocks and also scares me.
Yeah.
Like, which I think he was trying to do. I think that was the vibe. Yeah.
I appreciate too how it's like musically and lyrically, like it's never so like literal, you know? It's not like we're gonna take LSD and then commit cult crimes. Like it's more so this like sinister energy and very like, what would the mind be like? And then guitar wise, it's not like like full villain, but it's like sort of this marriage of like, I'm kind of grooving. I feel a little uneasy. I'm kind of grooving though, but I feel uneasy.
Yeah, you're like still at the beach with Marilyn Manson.
You're still at the beach, but it's like perhaps there's some seagulls swirling
Maybe
you,
like the
and you're
beach
holding a
makes you
sandwich.
old, the beach that makes you young.
Oh my, fuck that movie. Okay. Did you watch Old?
No.
The beach makes you old, guys. So stupid. And nobody in that movie talks like how a human person talks.
Yeah.
Like they talk to each other and they're like, oh my God, my stomach feels weird. What do you think about that? And we're now getting older and maybe it's the beach. And it's like,
well, now I gotta go watch it.
I don't want to watch it. Yeah.
Which is maybe like the M. Night Shyamalan of it all, but like,
I have before we move on, I have a quote from the Wikipedia page about this song. It was, I think it's talking about this guy, Rusty Kershaw, who was part of the album process. He goes, dissatisfied with their complacent performances, Kershaw managed to motivate the other musicians to inject extra energy and unease into the recording of Revolution Blues through wild behavior and crazy antics in the studio. And then it goes in quotes. It says, I said, look, man, you don't look like you're trying to start a fucking revolution. Here's how you do that.
Whoa.
And I started breaking a bunch of shit. Ben jumped in right there. I said, that's a revolution, motherfucker. And he says, God damn, that sparked Neil right off. He got it on the next take. So,
method.
Wow.
yeah. So again, like scary.
Yes.
I would never throw a bunch of shit in my recording studio. But then again, I didn't have Neil Young money. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Valid.
the 70s were crazy, man.
Yeah.
That's wild.
My God. Okay.
They're just in Sunset Sound, like this $1 billion recording studio in
Just
LA.
throwing shit.
Probably
Yeah.
had good insurance. I don't know.
But that's fun that they brought up Ben there, because I want to talk about Ben on this next track for the Turnstiles.
Yep.
Yes, please.
Yeah, perfect transition.
Yeah.
Stunning.
Ben Keith on the dobro, this track, which is like a guitar with like a metal sound hole that you can play slide on. And this is a kind of endearing fact I read, that he would sometimes call Ben Longgrain as like a spoof on like Uncle Ben's rice.
Right, okay.
And also on his height, I guess he was tall.
Old Longgrain playing the dobro.
Yeah.
Range.
I love that.
That's cute.
Yeah.
Well, so this song it's dobro and banjo, right? And if you say that together, it's the dobro and the banjo. Something very phonetically satisfying
Delicious,
about
yes.
that. Phonetically delicious. Band name.
Phonetically delicious.
So I listened to the song for many, many years, and I loved it. But it wasn't until I started researching this that it seems like it might be about touring life.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then I read the lyrics again. And I was like, oh, brilliant. Like,
Again, like it's not so literal.
no.
I mean, it's very not literal. It's like I'm a seaman and I have a maiden at home or whatever.
Right,
like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Seasick mama.
Exactly. But
That's
like,
kind of poetic.
with that context, you're like, no way, yeah.
Yeah. And so I brought up earlier, like the whole like the lyrics that have aged well on this record. And so he says, singing songs for pimps with tailors who charge $10 at the door. I watched a live performance of him doing this with, I think, old Longgrain himself.
Oh, wow.
And it was, I don't know how many years later, probably no more than 5, but he said, singing songs for pimps with tailors who charge $40 at the door.
Inflation.
So inflation, baby.
Oh my God.
So he is basically, and it helped me recontextualize that line a little bit where I was saying like, oh, like fucking Live Nation, baby. Like, like, and so, yeah. And then the like my favorite lyric that I wrote down from this was, all the Bush League batters are left to die on the diamond. In the stands, the home crowd scatters for the turnstiles. And it just made me kind of feel like the struggle of touring musicians who like are going to these new places and the people don't want to stick around to see them.
Yeah.
Because they're not from there. And so it's like they're left to die on the diamond and the home crowd scatters for the turnstiles. And I love the way that they're like, for the turnstiles. Like, there's the way they sing. Like the way they sing this song is so good. But yeah,
It's so different now. Because at first I was like, turnstiles. What what a weird name of a song.
Right.
Like this kind of like weird mechanism you only associate with like trains and baseball stadiums.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, this idea of just like being left to die out there. And you don't think with famous like touring musicians such as Neil Young, like, oh, there's this glamour that I think even to this day, with even how in the shitter touring is for musicians, like there's still this glamour attached to it that people don't think.
Yeah.
But you have these huge bands now who are like, we can't afford to tour and we can't do that and we can't. And so I feel like this song, again, very ahead of its time, calling out things that maybe at the time weren't called out. But I could just imagine that Neil was probably miserable a lot of the time doing this. And it's just, it's so interesting because people just don't think about that stuff, especially when it's like, oh, well, that's one of the most famous songwriters of all time.
Right,
It's like,
right.
well, he was having a shit time, like he was saying fuck you to everyone who was wanting to hear Harvest, and he was playing all new songs and just,
The Guardian just put out an article about how like touring is like only accessible for the middle class.
I think not even the middle class. I think
Like
for like the upper middle class, I think
uh-huh.
it's becoming inaccessible for the middle class.
Yeah. They're like, only like no one can do this and make money right now.
No. And for me personally, like that was the life I was chasing pre-COVID. And it's not really anymore because I just think I would be happier if I didn't.
Yeah.
Almost. And I've there's been a grieving period of that, but I've also come to this place of like, I can be the artist that I've always wanted to be and be stationed here in Chicago and make a lot of, just like noise here in this amazing musical city. But yeah, all my friends are kind of dealing with this, like, if they try to tour, they have to quit their jobs, or they have to find jobs where it's like you aren't going to lose your job if you go touring and then you don't make any money. And it's so hard. And so to hear this song from 1974 about this it's really timely. And I'm like, this album is really timely. It's 50 years ahead of its time, really.
Yeah.
But,
Well, even on the next track, if we're done with this one, Vampire Blues about the oil industry.
Oh, Diva.
Man, nothing's
nothing's changed. Shit's gotten worse.
You could write this song right now. Same song.
Oh, man.
I do have a question for you guys, though.
Yes, please.
Do you think the spooky organ was purposeful?
It's a vampire song.
That's it. That's the answer.
That's my answer.
Like, yeah.
It's a vampire organ.
So Vampire Blues is probably my least favorite song on this album, but that's not saying I don't like it.
Yeah.
It's a mood song, and it kind of, I think, is this like breather in between something like Revolution Blues and For the Turnstiles, and before we get into the second, like side B of the record, which is just Oh Mama is heavy. But this one still, is just capturing this vibe. And again, this was another one. I didn't know it was about the oil industry until I started to research this episode.
Yeah.
And again, the lyrics, there's not very many of them. This is like the most traditional blues song on the record.
Mm-hmm.
But the line I wrote down that always hits me is the good times are coming. I hear it everywhere I go.
Yep.
Good times are coming, but they sure coming slow. And I'm just like, woo! Like, that just hits so hard. And I feel like that.
And that's like a blues line, you know?
It's
like,
such a blues line.
Like the blues,
Yeah.
so you got to say the same phrase twice, and then there's the payoff on the third line.
But also hearing it like 50 years later with the context of, okay, I have two thoughts. My first thought is, it seems like while Neil Young was getting his beefs out, he was also like, and fuck you to the oil industry.
Literally,
Like,
and there's a couple moments on this record where I think he goes, and by the way, fuck you
another
too.
thing.
Like,
Yeah.
it's almost like where he's kind of going down the line here and
Yes.
like getting his grievances
No one
out.
is safe.
No one is safe. Like, you know, he gets his diss track out on track 1, but he's throwing shots everywhere.
Yes.
Like, you know,
Absolutely.
especially on side A, I feel like he's throwing a lot of shots, and then he has a few inside B. But like, yeah, this song, I have a timestamp for this one at 3:10, and it's at the very end, and basically it's this guitar line that he does for just like the end of the song, and the chord changes, standard blues, but they're changing. He's playing this dissonant note that just does not fit with any of the chords, and he just does not stop playing it, and it's like this
This guitar solo.
and I'm like, ugh. Like, it's so good. So I think 3:10 is what I wrote down for it.
Gets a little nasty with it.
Good times are coming.
Like, the chords are changing, but he's like, nope.
He's strumming with his middle finger. Mad as hell in the studio.
That broke me. There's so many delicious moments like that on this album that really just do it for me, and now I'm forever gonna picture him pissed the fuck off strumming that note with his middle finger, and his band is probably looking at him like, hey Neil, you're gonna change that note, and he's like,
They're like, Neil, we're playing.
Neil, it's the blues. There's not that many notes. There's not that many wrong notes you can hit. And he goes, well, this is wrong.
I was so intrigued by this solo. Like, I researched it. I like wanted to know what people thought about it.
Holy fuck.
And a bunch of people were calling it like an anti-solo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
love
again,
that.
back to the point we've been talking about, where he kind of like is making a record that's a little less polished, a little less. And then that led me down the rabbit hole of him being the grandfather of grunge. Did you guys read and hear about
Oh.
this?
And also like the grandfather of like slowcore as well. Like he has, like his music is very ahead of its time in that regard too, where it's like these bands didn't really pop up until the late 80s, the 90s, the 2000s and stuff. But yeah, like people will cite him as the grandfather of grunge, and especially his albums with Crazy Horse. Like, everybody knows This Is Nowhere or Zuma. There's these long songs that are slow as molasses, and they have these long solos and all these guitars, and people are like, slowcore? So again, so ahead of his time, and like just uncompromising, and that's, I think, the most enduring thing about this album.
Okay, so to bounce back, he's in the studio, middle finger to the oil industry. I was thinking also about like the sort of timelessness of For the Turnstiles, and it's like, oh god, you listen to this 50 years later and you're like, yeah, touring fucking sucks. In fact, it was bad then and it might be even worse now. Hey, I'm sorry, I'm strumming over here as well.
That was beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's the same note he played in the guitar solo.
Yeah. I could play guitar solo, actually. Can't play a lick.
Is this episode Hour on the Beach?
Whoa.
It might be.
The anti-episode.
Anti-podcast.
The anti-podcast.
So, okay, like touring, you listen to today and you're like, oh man. And kind of the same thing for like the ecological fuck the oil industry of it all.
Yeah.
It's another thing where there's sort of this like, I don't know, you watch like Back to the Future and like what was the future year in Back to the Future? It was like 2012 or something.
Yeah, I don't remember.
And you're like, oh, we kind of fucked up though. And then you listen to this and it's like, fuck the oil industry. Like good times are coming, but they're, slow to come. Paraphrasing. And you're like, oh yeah, like
50 years
slow
later.
to come.
Yeah.
We're still like building pipelines and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you listen to this and there's people who had their finger on the pulse, artists, and I'm sure just, like the activists of the time had their finger on the pulse talking about these things not as many people were talking about. And now plenty of people are talking about them because it's really bad.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But it's not getting better because the people who are in control are still in control.
Right.
And yeah, it's tough. It's like when I listen to What's Going On by Marvin Gaye, which is one of my favorite records, and he's singing about all these things, and I'm like, we're still like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like where he's singing about like Mercy Me the Ecology, and it's about this early climate change song. And I just think, have we done literally everything wrong since then that we could possibly have done?
Mm-hmm.
To not heed this warning sign? And again, I'm not saying us specifically, but like the people in power.
The royal we.
The royal
Yeah.
we.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
The
we
fucking
banned
royal we.
CFCs since then. That's
Gay? What are CFCs?
chlorofluorocarbons.
Okay.
That's
hey.
that's the stuff
that's
that
one
was
box
that was
checked.
in hairspray that like depleted the ozone layer.
Oh, yeah.
But that's it. That's the only.
We got to
thing.
find our wins where
Yeah.
they are, y'all.
It's like, I don't know. There's like some electric cars and there's like some solar stuff, but it's like,
Yeah.
more guys, more.
So now basically, if you had a vinyl record of this album, this is where we would flip.
Uh-huh.
And just to preface, not to like put it in anyone's brains, like feel how you feel when you
Yeah.
listen to this record. But this side B, these 3 songs are generally regarded amongst Neil Young fans as some of the pinnacle of his artistry. Like this side B is considered really, really masterful, really important. And I would say especially this song and Ambulance Blues.
Mm,
So
They're great pieces. Like
Yeah.
it's such a good outro to a record.
yeah, and I think it's like you kind of get these 5 songs on side A and you get 3 on side B. So side B is just like stretching it out longer
mhm.
and sinking in. And I think that this next song, On the Beach, the title track, this is the heart of the album. This is one of my favorite songs of any artist of all time.
Wow.
And it is. And I think that if I could recommend to any listener, first of all, listen to this album On the Beach if you get the chance. Like
Mm.
it will just hopefully put you in all the places that it puts me. But this song, this is it for me. Like this to me is like how do you capture a mood? How do you capture a feeling? How do you capture emotion? How do you like this is the album cover.
Yeah.
This song is the album cover. Him staring out into the distance, like this is it. And there's a lot of great lines on this song. It's another kind of bluesy number, even though it doesn't have blues in the title. It changes the blues a little bit, where it uses kind of like these major 7 chords instead of dominant 7 chords, and minor 7 chords as well, that are more melancholy again and more kind of impressionistic, as opposed to more like the blues is a little bit more. Like dominant 7 chords have like this real pull to go places, and there's a little bit more of this like this sass and this twang and this attitude, whereas like the major 7 and the minor 7 chords have just this like it washes over you, and it just it for me it just puts me in this like really inquisitive melancholy headspace. And the line on this song where he says, "Though my problems are meaningless, that don't make them go away."
Period.
Damn.
We would have picked the same line. Yeah.
That's the fucking album.
Literally.
And that is the most timeless lyric for me on the entire record. And it's
Yeah.
the one that when I was reading, again, I'll reference it again, that list of the best Neil Young songs. Stephen Hayden said, I predict in 20 years this will be the most beloved Neil Young song because this is the most pressing to our existence right now.
Totally.
Wow.
And that line is just like, every time I hear that line, I'm like, holy fuck. What a simple way to say so much and how I think we all as humans feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just I want to let y'all speak because there's other things I want to say about the song, but
No, I'm still sinking that line.
Yeah, I want to speak on that line more. Like, because I also, like, really was, like, wanted to,
yeah.
bite it like a big gummy.
Yeah.
Like, because it really is, like, I respect it a lot. There's sort of this acknowledgement of being in this very, like, privileged place, right? That so few people get to be in. He's, like, this beloved, like, famous person who gets to spend all his time and have all these resources to purely just, like, create. But it's also, like, you know, there's so much, like, kind of beef with, like, oh, well, you don't have real problems. Like, oh, my tour bus was stinky. Like, what? And there's validity to that, too, because it's like, well, you know, there's also, like, people who can't, I don't know, afford food or, like, pay to go get, like, a cavity filled or things like that. So it really is this, like, duality that you sort of grapple with where it's like, I get it. It's a very privileged take to say, like, I don't feel understood by my audience or, like, I feel alienated by fame. And maybe in the grand scheme of life, like, that's not a particularly, like, life-threatening problem to have. But it still, like, has a very real impact on my psyche.
Yeah, it doesn't go away.
Yeah.
And also, just because I'm famous, he's saying, like, I just lost two of my best friends to drug overdoses, and I am miserable.
Yeah.
And no one will take my misery seriously because I'm famous.
Yeah.
And I think it's, you know, like, for me, that line does hit because I am always trying to check my privilege and always trying to think of all of the ways that I am so lucky. And when we look at so many of the horrors of the world that we are taking in, there is so much privilege with being in this country, and yet at the same time, this country is a piece of shit sometimes in so many ways, and we are struggling to survive or thrive in our own ways while still being safe, relatively.
Yeah.
And it's all of these conflicting feelings, and I just don't know if there's ever been a couplet that better made me feel seen.
Yeah.
And I feel like this song makes me feel so seen. And every time I hear that line, you know, he's repeating these lyrics in the style of the blues, but that one he says once and he just leaves it. And, you know, he leads up to it by saying, I need a crowd of people, but I can't face them day to day. And I remember when I was younger and I was desiring that touring life and I wanted to be a successful touring musician, I would get to that line, this moment in the song, and this moment in the album, and I would go, oh my God, he's just like me. Like, I'm chasing this thing, but I am this introverted, anxious artist who is so about the craft, but, like, needs to feel safe and needs to feel seen and needs to have my people around me. And why am I chasing this life where I know that if I succeed in the ways that people would deem really successful, I'm going to feel this way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need to every day pull myself up and just perform for these crowds of people. And I can't face them day to day.
And then he goes right into this ripping guitar solo,
which is my timestamp for this song.
This is the anti guitar solo.
This is, I don't want to use hyperbole, but I already called this one of my favorite songs of all time.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, guitar solos of all time because of the emotion.
And you would be so right.
like with the like sort of bongo like all the way in the back. It kind of feels like slam poetry. Feels like he's like monologuing for a second.
I love that. I love it
Yeah.
because the bongo playing is free flowing, baby. Like it is.
Yeah.
It's just such a vibe, and I think there's an arc to this solo. Like any great solo has, it's telling a story, and so it starts a little bit more. It's like this medium place between the softness and the hardness, and it accelerates, and then it gets to that place where it pulls so far back, and it's like those major 7 chords I was talking about. He's just dancing around them and hitting those like those blue notes, which are just the ones that are like, ugh, like, you know, like they just really hit you. And then when he comes back in with that more aggressive playing and he does that bend where it's like the like that to me, every time it's like the feeling of like, I don't know what I want to say. Can I take up space? Like now I'm taking up space. Now I'm pulling back. Like I can't. And then he goes, no, I'm going to fucking say how I feel. Like that to me is what this solo is. And it's just, it is so beautiful. And I love just like, you know, sometimes when you read through the comment sections of YouTube, it can be a dark place. But like on a song like this, I'm reading all these like probably like 60 and 75-year-old like old men, and they're just writing about this guitar solo and these lyrics. And I'm like, yes, I feel this way. And the listen I did of this album before this podcast, I went to the beach and I timed it so that this song would kind of like kick in once I got to the beach.
Stunning.
And I found a place like on the rocks, like by Loyola Beach, and I laid back and I stared into the sky and I listened to this song just as my edible was kicking in. And I was like, I'm feeling everything everywhere all at once. Like that. And so, yeah, I don't know what else I could really say about this one, but it's gorgeous, and it is the album to me. And I agree that I think it's going to continue to age so beautifully, and I think it's so relatable for many, many people.
Yeah, it's a great piece. I just wrote that. I said great piece. That's all the notes I have for it. I couldn't think of anything else besides
great.
It's so good.
You were like, love that music.
Love, and it's the title track.
Yeah. It's the thesis.
It's the thesis. Yeah, and I think too, it'd be a good time for me to, because I wanted to mention this, like the contrast of the album title versus what you get on this album, which I think is part of what is so beautiful, and the melancholy. And it's a similar thing to, I'm a huge Beach Boys fan, and they have this song called Surf's Up, and it's one of the most incredible pieces of music ever. And it came later in the career of them, and Brian Wilson wrote it as kind of like a revisiting of the earlier themes of the Beach Boys, but from such a like melancholy, I'm growing up sort of mindset. And it's this similar thing to me where it's like when you think of On the Beach, you think of this, you think of breezy music, you think of laid back music, you think of like good times music. And there's something so powerful about the album cover, the album title, this title track, where it's like that contrast of I'm supposed to feel this way, and instead I feel this way. And that, it's like the Charlie Brown Christmas album. It's like why I love the Charlie Brown Christmas album is because it's melancholy as fuck. Like I'm supposed to feel happy this time of year, but I don't.
But
I
I'm
feel
having these other human emotions.
I'm having these existential thoughts and feelings, and it just, like that to me is where music really, and art, like elevates and transcends, is those merging of these emotions. And just like take a walk, put this album on, and make sure you are at the beach by the time this song comes on. Like that's all I'm telling you, and I promise you, you will walk away with some feelings of whoa.
Yeah. You're gonna walk away with capital F feelings.
So how was the edible into the next song, Motion Pictures, with this beautiful acoustic guitar?
Yeah.
Because this is the song where the Honey Sliders, like, really show
Full
for
effect.
me. I'm like, these guys were stoned.
Yeah.
Like, it is the stoned song of the album. And I think, let me see, there's a good quote on the Wikipedia page about this one. let's see. The mood of the sessions was heavily influenced by the honey slides, creating a very melancholy, depressed atmosphere. Additionally, Young was at the time realizing that his relationship with Carrie Snodgrass was disintegrating. The song is called Motion Pictures, parentheses for Carrie. So it's about, his relationship kind of falling apart at the time. And Rusty Kershaw, which is like 10 out of 10 name. Rusty Kershaw, like, come on. Insisted on taking a relaxed approach to recording, rejecting the need to rehearse the material beforehand.
Sure.
And then he explains, I said, Neil, when it'll move me the most is the first time you play it. You're going to do it your very best then, and I can play it with you the first time. We only have to sit real close together. Neil said to me later, how in the hell did you know how to play this thing the first time I play it? You don't know what I'm going to do. I said, Neil, you carry a heavy vibe, and I'm sitting close to you. I can feel what you feel before you play. I know where you're going to go. And that was just kind of about this song. And you can feel it because they're just fucking stoned.
Yeah.
And that gorgeous harmonica comes back in this song. And it's these impressionistic lyrics. And I've spent a lot of time trying to like kind of decipher them. But I don't know if there's much to decipher. I feel like a man is watching his relationship fall apart and he's just trying to reckon with it, you know?
Yeah.
And it's less about, he's not writing a song about it, but he's there and he's writing a song.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like the motion picture TV screen parallels there. I think he's kind of like watching it in a way too, maybe, right?
I think I read they were in a hotel room with a movie on, and that was kind of the moment that song kind of came out of.
That's kind of how I took it. And it's funny that you bring up like the honey sticks of it all, because I kind of was looking at these lyrics and feeling like it feels like he's kind of trying to like ground himself a little bit,
Yeah, he's like, I'm a little too high.
It's like when you smoke weed and you get a little anxious and you like 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things, whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like,
I need that.
TV
I need to write
screen.
that down.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's free.
Yeah.
He's like, a TV screen, mountains, dew, ducks. And it's just kind of like, it feels like really like...
thank you for that.
Accessible imagery. That was sort of my like feeling, because the lyrics, like you said, like it doesn't feel like there's too much.
It's not a story.
Yeah,
it's not a story.
It's kind of a bunch of little like paintings.
Yeah,
totally, like paintings of motion pictures, paintings of mountains, paintings like. I feel like he's in a hotel room and he's taking in what he sees, and they're sitting on the beds together and they're playing the song for the first time and they're just going for it. And the lyric I wrote down from this song was, well, all those headlines, they just bore me now. I'm deep inside myself, but I'll get out somehow. Mm-hmm. And I'll stand before you and I'll bring a smile to your eyes. Motion pictures. And I think that I'm deep inside myself, but I'll get out somehow is the side B of this album. It's like he's sunk into his depression and he's sunk into his sadness and his grief and is losing his friends and he's losing his relationship and he's supposed to be happy because he's famous, and he's saying, I am deep inside myself, but I will get out somehow. And it's like this shining light of I will get out of this. And again, I was saying earlier, like, this is not just a depressing album, it's an album about hope. Like, he's trying to get out of this and he's trying to, do something. He's not just letting it overtake him. And that little like whimper of a harmonica that comes in is just like, to me, again, where lyrics end, the music goes, and it sounds like the harmonica that's on See the Sky About to Rain, and it feels kind of like a second to last song. It's like this arc that kind of comes back.
Yeah. It's where the rainbow would hit.
Yeah, and it's just beautiful.
While all those people, they think they got it made, but I wouldn't buy, sell, borrow, or trade anything I have to be like one of them. I'd rather start all over again.
takes its time.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not
It
rushed
totally
at all
takes its
about
time.
anything. Like, everything is just as slow and as easy as it needs to be.
Mhm.
Can we talk about I'd rather start all over again?
I know.
Yeah.
Like,
Like
that
that.
Lois have heard him.
And for him to say, like, you know, I wouldn't buy, sell, borrow, or trade anything I have to be like one of them. Whoever he's talking about, the people who think they've got it made, it's like this him saying, I am blessed with what I have in my life, despite all of this and all of the things I'm supposed to want.
Mhm.
I wouldn't trade any of it. I'd rather just start my life over again than trade all of that.
Mhm.
And the way that his voice just dips low there, I saw it was like the top YouTube comment on this video was like, that I'd rather start all over again is like the best 3 seconds in Neil Young's discography. And I just love the way he sings it. And like he has such a way, you know, same with the guitar. It's like weird voice, but the emotions that he conveys and how he sings things is like that's artistry. Like it makes me feel something when he sinks into the bottom of his range when he's talking about starting all over again, you know? Just
Yeah.
like ugh. So
Yeah.
this song is a puzzle that is hard for me to crack, but it's such a necessary respite between On the Beach and Ambulance Blues, you know?
Yeah, because you
Yeah.
need a little
You need
something between those two.
you need a little something between them.
This one's like a little stroll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You take a little walk.
Yeah.
Take a little walk.
Yeah.
Like on
Yeah.
my last listen, this was when I like got up from where I had been like sinking into the sky and the world, and I
Yeah.
was kind of like walking back from the beach towards like my path home, and you're just kind of preparing yourself for the finale, which
Let's get into
let's
it.
get into it because I think it's one of the best album closers that ever did exist. To be honest, like it's
What a bookend. I mean, it's the longest song on the album.
8.5 minutes, right?
yeah.
Almost 9.
And
It's
it
like
needs to be.
8:57.
It's like, don't cut any of it ever.
Yeah.
No.
It's really like the smoke sesh is over. And now we're just sinking it.
Yeah.
And we're all like, yo.
Yeah, and I think that it's one of those songs where he just goes in all of these different directions.
Yeah.
And the imagery is beautiful, but it's not necessarily consistent. And it's like you get these vignettes. It's like it's really
Mhm.
like these vignettes of these different things
Yeah.
that he's kind of getting off of his chest and coming to terms with and processing. And I love how it has a totally different sound than the previous song, even though it's an acoustic based song. It's like the harmonica here is a little more Dylan-esque, where it's a little more like those full chords and it's a little more there. And then you have a fiddle on this song, which is the first fiddle on.
So good.
The fiddle's great. I think that's Rusty Kershaw on there. I don't want to get that wrong, but
What a good name.
Ru-
And a good fiddle.
yeah, Rusty Kershaw on the fiddle.
We can't misattribute the fiddle.
Can't miss a Rusty Kershaw.
Mm-mm.
Put that Rusty Kershaw away. You're gonna hurt yourself, young man.
And Rusty Kershaw will never miss.
But I have a couple different, like sections of the song lyrically that I wanted to point out. But first, I wanted to just like open it up to you guys in a general sense. Listening to this album, how did it feel to get this song at the end of everything?
It was like there was a tiny, tiny part of me that was like, my God, there's so much left. Like there was a little bit of me that was like, we're gonna put all of this into one song right at the end, because like you said, like these are like these vignettes, and there are parts of it that I would have loved to like kind of, and maybe this is something that gets really dug onto or into in an earlier project or a later project, but the like, I don't recognize where I grew up of it all. And the like, you critics, you're no better for me than what you've shown. Like, there are all these sort of little things where it feels like tiny beefs. It feels like little sliders.
Mm-hmm. Like those could have been full song ideas,
Yeah.
but yeah, he's kind of throwing out these different things here.
Yeah.
And
I just kept getting like intrigued. I was like, huh?
oh, I know.
Oh.
And they don't quite relate to each other.
Exactly.
Except in the sense that this is just how he feels about so many things, which is very human.
Totally.
You know, it's messy being human, and so it's messy to feel all these different things.
It kind of felt like the end of a therapy session
Yeah.
where you've like
And
dug into
also-
something and you're like, by the way, like, someone said something kind of weird to me. And also, like, I'm mad at my landlord and like whatever. And you just
Yeah.
have these like tiny little bullet points that like you don't really know how to explore yet. But you're like, let's just get this on the record.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
so funny. I love the steadiness of the musicality underneath it all.
Mm.
Because, like, again, it's taken its time still.
In a different way, but totally.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's totally taking its time, and it's saying, "Hey, fucker, 9 minutes, like
Yeah.
you know, strap in."
Yeah. It's like you're already sat. Like,
Yeah, like if you're still
What else
listening
are
at
you
this
doing?
point, like
Yeah.
what else are you doing?
And so you just get all these different ideas. These kind of like little like I'm imagining like the little thought bubbles.
Yeah. Yeah.
But-
Oh, I just want to say I do want to hear the harmonica because I think it's my favorite
Oh,
on the
of
whole record.
course.
Yeah, let's do it.
Stunning.
Kind of just like playing off each other back and forth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get this sense, like the first 10 times I listened to this record, I would think that this song was about to be over. And then another
Oh, there's
like
another.
vignette would come in as another stanza, and I would go, "Oh, I forgot about that one, but how did I forget about that one? Because I remember that one. Like that's so
Yeah.
good." And you can hear even before the very last stanza, the musicians kind of stop and they go, "Are we done?" And you could just tell that they're looking at Neil, and he's probably got his eyes closed, and he's just still playing. And they're like,
Mhm.
"I guess we're still
I guess
playing."
Got one more.
You know? And so, yeah, I have 3 vignettes here, and I just
Yes.
want to briefly touch on all of them because they're some of my favorite lyrics ever, ever, ever. So this first one is, I guess I'll call it Sickness Gone. It's hard to say the meaning of this song. Like, come on. That's literally
Sure.
what we're saying is like, to drop that is so meta.
Yes, yes.
And then he goes, an ambulance can only go so fast. Title reference. It's easy to get buried in the past. And then he does an extra line. And he says, when you try to make a good thing last. And when I was writing this down today, I had this tangible thought where I was like, literally the act of putting in one more line than like the rest of the vignettes is trying to make a good thing last.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I was like,
He
oh
knew.
my
He
God.
knew
Like,
what he's doing.
come on. And that line always hits me so hard because don't we all try to make good things last?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know when it's past its time and you're trying, and it's this unique sort of sadness where it's like, this isn't how it used to feel, and I'm never gonna get this back.
Yeah.
And fuck, like just how human.
Yeah.
And to do kind of a text painting thing there where he's literally inserting this extra line. He's almost just trying to make this good thing last. And so that to me is just so
Literally the whole song too.
yes.
Yeah.
He's like 6 minutes? Nah,
Yeah.
9.
That he's gonna make the
Yes.
album last.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
He is making
Yes,
a good thing
and-
last.
Let me
My
tell you,
God.
that's the beauty of having only 8 songs on an album is you
Yeah.
get to stretch them out. And then you referenced this one before, Sarah, but I'm going
Yeah.
to say it again. It's the critics one. Holy fuck. So all you critics sit alone. You're no better than me for what you've shown. With your stomach pump and your hook and ladder dreams, we could get together for some scenes. Just this idea that like the back and forth there is masterful because he's saying like he's throwing shots at the critics saying
Mhm.
you sit alone, and then he brings it back to himself by saying you're no better than me for what you've shown.
Yeah.
And it's kind of this, I've never heard anything better to describe the relationship between critic and artist. You know, he's saying like it's that like we need each other to exist kind of thing. You're no better than me for what you've shown. And he goes, with your stomach pump and your hook and ladder dreams, like you alcoholic, you're just trying to use me to raise your career.
Mm-hmm.
What a scathing thing to say to someone, only for him to say, we could get together for some scenes.
Right.
To be like, we are mirrors of each other.
Yeah.
Like, holy fuck, you know, like that is incredible. And that line, every time I hear it, that stanza, I'm just like, Jesus Christ. Like that is writing. That is artistry, is to be able to, again, like I said, not stand on your podium and preach and talk down at people, but to get down to the floor and talk with people on the same level, and to say, I see you and I can criticize you because I can also criticize myself.
Yeah.
Like that.
Wow.
That's, you know, that's beautiful, incredible. And that is what my favorite songwriters do. And then the last thing I have is, you're all just pissing in the wind. You don't know it, but you are. And there ain't nothing like a friend who can tell you you're just pissing in the wind.
I loved that line.
Like, come on.
So, like, humble.
Yeah.
And
Come
just
on.
like this is a guy, you know,
Yeah.
like he's just a guy.
So wise for 29 years old,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Well,
Just
and
an old man
it's
the whole time.
take a look at his life. Like it's this, because it's crude, and this idea of pissing in the wind, like just, you know, just using the word piss and like talking about it, whatever, like it is a very like dude thing. But also this idea of pissing in the wind, to me, is this idea of like, you're not even thinking about what you're doing. You're just trying to hit whatever. Like you're aimless. You're trying to, you know, you're not thinking. You're just pissing in the wind. Whoever it hits, it hits.
Yeah.
And to say like, there's nothing like a friend who can tell you when you are doing that.
Yeah.
Come on. Like that, we all need friends, and we all should be a friend who could stand up to someone we love and say like, bro, stop fucking pissing in the wind.
Yeah.
Like, you know?
Yeah.
And
Do you think that's at all inspired by the two friends he lost recently before this record?
yeah, it's probably inspired by a lot. I think it's probably inspired by his bandmates that were still alive. It's probably inspired by his bandmates that died. Because right before that, he says, he's talking about the places he's back in Toronto, and he's keeping Jive alive. And he's talking about the places that are empty. He says, except for the farmer's market, and I still can hear them, or I still can hear him say, you're all just pissing in the wind.
Oh.
So someone to him said that, and I think it could have been, maybe it's confirmed, maybe it's not, I don't know. Maybe it could have been a specific person, or it could have been someone that he lost.
Yeah.
And that was like, he's hearing them say that to him.
Damn.
And then that's always the point of the song, until I listened to it enough that I learned, where I thought it would end, because you can hear the band is kind of ending.
Yeah.
And then he goes, hey, Richard Nixon.
Yeah.
And one
you
more
thought you were
thing.
safe.
He goes,
Bitch.
and one more thing. And he does the whole, I never met a man who could tell so many lies.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first heard that record was 2016, so it felt very like Donald Trumpian to me.
Yeah.
And felt very prescient, but I love the pettiness on an album where he has been taking these random shots at everything, and he kind of like, it would be perfect to end this album on the pissin' in the wind lyric, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But this is not a perfect album.
Yeah.
It is a flawed, strange, weird, human album.
Uh-huh.
And I love that he goes, oh, and one more thing. I've got one more fucking thing to get off my chest. And he drops the Richard Nixon lines. And, you know, just for him to say, like, I never met a man who could tell so many lies. He had a different set of story for every set of eyes. How can you remember who he's talking to? Because I know it isn't me, and I hope it isn't you.
Yeah.
It's like, come on. Like, are you kidding me? Like, and then it just ends.
Yeah.
And you're like, I feel a lot right now.
You're like, okay, let me think about that.
Yep.
Let me go journal, I guess.
Let me go journal and cry my eyes out. And yeah, I just, fuck. I don't know, fuck. Like,
yeah.
fuck. So I appreciate the ambition, and I appreciate the imperfection,
Yeah.
and I appreciate the mood and the honesty and the humanity that is displayed on this album. And I think for me, when I was thinking of albums to pick, there's a lot of albums I love that maybe are more perfect than this one.
Mm-hmm.
But this one is so human to me. And I think that's why I always come back to it. And it really, I listen to it a couple times a year, and it grows with me, and I just think it is deserving of its status as one of his best records and one of the best records of the 70s. And I love reading people's opinions about it and how much they love it. And it moves me in such a human way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
Wow.
thank you because I feel like, hey, what a human discussion we've had.
Uh-huh.
Not to be like a moderator, but like seriously, like this is one of those records where like I feel like a more perfect quote unquote like or like more technically like polished record.
A record that was mixed.
Yeah.
A record that got the thing done that happens with every album. Like, sorry, go
Right.
ahead.
No, yeah. And we have had records like that are so like technically impressive.
Yeah.
And you can spend so much time like gushing on that.
And I love those too. Like,
Of
I
course.
love those records.
But I really love, like, also as someone who doesn't have like technical music skill or knowledge, period. Like the more human records, the records where we're like talking about the beefs and shit. Like
And the
I personally
imperfections.
connect with a lot of that. So
Yeah, it's human as fuck. And
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
there's so many things about this where he's just pulling on all of these different things that are causing him pain,
Yeah.
but he's finding joy. And the songs themselves, it's not like this is the painful song and this is the joyful song. It's like this is the painful line
mhm.
or this is the painful word. And then this overall is just showing a very complex human messy view, which I feel like, as you know, in our day and age, there is kind of this internet push to be like pure and perfect and morally correct all the time, and what it misses is our humanity. Like, we
Mhm.
are imperfect and we are learning and we are growing and we are fucking up and we are petty
Mhm.
and we are rude and we are kind and we are sweet. And like, this record to me is all of those things, and it's presented in such an unfiltered way where it's just like, here is me,
Yeah.
here's who I am, here's who I was at this time. And because of that, it endures, and it was my first Neil Young record. It'll always be my favorite. I have some others of him that I absolutely adore, but this to me is just like, this is peak music. Like, I don't know what else to
Yeah,
say. Like, come
yeah.
on. Like, this is great.
Yeah.
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 So
I mean, I'm thankful it was my first too.
I can't believe how relevant it is, like, still 50 years later. Like,
Literally.
It's, like,
more so maybe.
yeah.
Perhaps.
Like, yeah.
Or at least more like, well, no, yeah, more so. I was going to
Yeah.
say like more intensely, but I think that's synonymous.
More tangibly,
Yeah.
relevant.
With higher stakes, perhaps.
And the last thing I'll kind of say is, I think our discussion on this album mirrored how the album flows, is where it's
Mm.
like, it starts a little bit more like it gives you tastes of things.
Uh-huh.
But once we got to On the Beach, I was like, guys, I've just met you, but we are talking about life.
Yes.
You know,
Let's get
like,
into it.
let's get into it,
Yeah.
because you would be doing this album a disservice, and I just want to thank you both for showing up
Yeah.
and allowing me a space to talk about this album like this,
Of
because
course.
these have just been thoughts that have existed in my nerd brain for many years.
Yeah.
And this is great because I feel like we're all friends now,
Yes!
because, you know, we got to talk about this album together.
That's the
so-
secret sauce of album
That's the
reviews.
goal,
yeah.
We just
We just
get
make
you on the
friends.
couch and we all just have big
We just
feelings
hang
about
out.
wonderful music.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's take a quick pee break because, in fact, my bladder is full of whiskey. And when
honey
we
syrup.
come back, ASMR. When we come back, we'll give this a brewski, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Stunning.
Fun fact. The honey syrup is the same color it goes in, it goes out.
What the fuck?
We call that a honey slide. I am awarding the Rabruski for honey glazed beef to On the Beach by Neil Young.
Yay! Congratulations!
So prestigious.
It sounds
Mr.
so
Young.
delicious.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, folks, Thank you for listening to another sweet and beefy episode of Album Reviews. We are Album Reviews, and in fact, we will continue to be Album Reviews. And if you'd like to check us out on our sweet, sweet Instagram or our beefy, beefy Twitter, they are both at Album Rebrews, like reviews, but brews like beer. And you know that because you see the name of our podcast in your browser or phone. And if you'd like to check out our website where we have an artist like guest host submission form, if you want to come on here and do this, what a fun time we've had. It is www.albumrebrews.com.
A giant thank you and a little kiss on the cheek to our editor and singer-songwriter extraordinaire Cameron Bopp, a friend of our guests tonight. They knew each other in college, which is we didn't bring that up, but I think we should now.
Sight singing and dictation extraordinaire. And master rival Cameron Bopp.
Fucking giant music nerd Cameron Bopp.
Go check him out on evil Twitter at Cambopp, CAMBOPP. Another giant thank you to Ryan of Olive Avenue for coming on. This was so fun. A great record pick and a great episode. Please go use your internet to follow Olive Ave Music on Instagram. All one word, no underscores. And then go listen to the song Miami. It's out right now.
Stream it, baby.
I mean, not right now, but in the future where you are, it's out.
Feel sexy about it. Especially on a Monday. Especially on a Monday.
Especially.
That is on Spotify or wherever you hear your music, but there's a really cool little link in the description. You can use you click on. Ryan, anything you want to say to the folks at home before we get out of here?
Feel the feelings that you feel, and your life will thank you for it.
Man.
That's the
And
best.
also,
therapist.
and also, if you've got beef, fucking air it out, baby.
Yes!
I always say that. That's the best one anyone's said yet. That's really good.
Yeah. Okay, to formally close this out in the same order that we introduced ourselves, so I'll go first and then Zach and then Ryan. We're going to get very, very, very close to the microphone and give a sweet and beefy ASMR style goodbye to the listeners who made it this far. Thanks so much.
Wow.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.
Goodbye.
Oh, yeah.